Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag video for April 2022. The page 112 tag was started on BookTube by Sean at Sean the Book Maniac. He based it off of a French literary prize wherein they comprised the long list for said prize solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. So that means that in the middle of a novel-length work, you're somewhere in the middle of the novel, and you have no context for the rest of the story, so you can only go by the strength of the writing on that page. I have been using the page 112 tag since the start of COVID to try to whittle down my physical unread TBR shelves. I take 3 pieces of paper out of this handy-dandy books and cats mug. These pieces of paper are books I acquired in 2021 or earlier. I take out 3 pieces at random, and then I go ahead and pick out the books and read the pages on camera, and then discuss with you what I think of each of those pages and add one of them to this month's TBR. And hopefully I will be going by the protocol of this game where I judge it based off of page 112, though sometimes, especially when I have a lot of reading, I let other considerations like length come into play. But okay, without any further ado, let's go ahead and pick out these 3 books, starting with book number 1. Alright, just... Okay, is this just one? Okay. The Come Down by Rebecca Frumkin. Okay, this is one of my newer books. I got this at a used library store book haul I did roughly a year ago now, and this I know is one of my Jewish pieces of fiction. It's also something in contention for another TBR game I play. So I'll have to take it off of that one if I end up reading it for the page 112 tag, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, book number 2. I tend to hope for diversity, so like for an earlier book or a different genre or, subject matter or what have you. So, alrighty. Stick together, but here's just one. Here we go. Not Archived by Kitty Zeldis. Nope, this is pretty similar to book number 1. That it's, I think, Jewish-themed fiction that I found on the Jewish Book Council website, and I got it in the exact same used book haul that I got the first book from. But, what do you know? We'll be pitting these two against each other. And finally, book number 3, and my last chance for something a little bit different. And if it's a book I've chosen before while playing this game, I won't have to do all the post-production for it, which would be nice, because I've already done it for that book. Anyway, okay, there we go. Nope! We are pretty much 3 for 3. It's technically a different book haul, but it is still Jewish fiction that I acquired last year, Closer to Find by Jody S. Rosenfeld. This one I bought from a local bookstore, which I'll link down below. I also featured it in a blog post I wrote about a year ago about Pride Month, basically, and how it was being celebrated in the DC Jewish community. And one of the things that was happening was that this author was doing a virtual event at said bookstore, so I went ahead and bought her book. So anyway, that's what we're going with. Okay, you've seen me grab all 3 books, and now I'm going to go ahead and read them and collect my thoughts and then share said thoughts and readings with you. Okay, I'm back, and it's the time of day when the sun's going to start seeping through toward me, perhaps washing me in too much light, and we'll see what this does to the image, but I figure you're not so much here for the visuals of this channel. Hopefully you are interested in seeing what these page 112s will bring. So I'm starting with book number 1, The Come Down by Rebecca Frumkin. But being in a body was some fragile bullshit he'd have to tolerate forever. Being in a body that could get broken, with a mind that could get hurt, with a face that got spat on and talked down to. The living room was empty, as he'd expected. The TV was still on, playing a western, so he turned it off. He thought about cleaning the room and then realized that he wasn't going fast enough. He had places to be, and he wasn't trying to spend his whole day pretending like his mom wasn't constantly betraying him. Caleb still called her moms, but Aaron gave up on calling her anything. It had always been something about her, the way she treated him. She liked Caleb more because they could talk about math and books and whatever else Caleb gave a shit about in school. Every time she found a cigarette in the house or weed, it was always Aaron's fault right away, even the times it was Caleb's. And since Aaron had grown this past year, she always walked at a little distance from him when they went out. She hugged him softer and looser, too. And there was a weird stiff way she moved whenever she had to lift him when he was little, like she was lifting something too heavy for her to carry. Plus, the things she didn't make any sense. She had a big, wide forehead and bright, always open eyes, and when they were really little, she smiled a lot and told them to believe that everything in the world was going to work out fine for them. Who believed that? She would tell Caleb when he got another A or found $10 on the ground outside the building, or got kissed by a girl at school, that he got lucky and that there was a pattern to everything and he was being watched out for. Not God, she always said. We don't believe in that religious nonsense. We're not like other people. But weren't they just like other people when they replaced God with something watching out for you? And that something clearly hated Aaron from the start, because the only people who had his back were Andre and a few other guys, maybe Meech's if she liked the tapes he gave her. Then Aaron remembered the watch. He went back to their bedroom where Caleb was already snoring again. Caleb had wanted to get her something nice for her birthday, for once, rather than the usual Bisquick for breakfast handmade card thing he and Aaron sort of did every year. He wanted to get her a Casio, which Aaron thought was ridiculous, but Caleb was obsessed with it, tearing out the pages of a bunch of nerd magazines and storing them under his bed. He even went into the store in Tower City, and the guy told him he was only allowed to use 1 coupon per purchase. Okay, this one I think is a little bit of a tricky one. I like what's going on. The action I think is compelling. You know, family drama is always pretty compelling to me, and we quite obviously have a son in this book who is resentful of his mother. He thinks his mother, you know, treats him unfairly and differently, especially than his brother Caleb. So, like, it's not only that she treats him unfairly, but that she treats his brother better. And that's, you know, catnip for me, this sort of, you know, backdrop. And I felt like the writing was pretty decent, but it was almost entirely exposition. Nothing was happening in the present in the story other than I think Caleb turning off the television and going into their room where Aaron was sleeping. I think I might have gotten the boys' names mixed up there, but anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's just not a lot, you know, present plot action to compel us, and I wish that there was a little more breakup between all of Aaron's resentful thoughts and things happening in the present. I think there's a hint that he's going to mess with this birthday present, although on reread, I'm not quite sure the birthday present is for the mom or maybe for this Meech's character. I'm not quite sure. But I think it's an interesting setup for a character. I like it, but I don't think, you know, I wish this page were a little more varied. Next, book number 2 is Not Our Kind by Kitty Zeldis. Only a taste, and only when Win isn't around. She must love that, Eleanor enjoyed trying to picture it. How's she doing anyway, with her schoolwork and all? Really well. She's a bright girl. I wouldn't be surprised if she turned out to be a writer. Are Margot, you think? I do, Eleanor said. You just wait. You sound very sure of that. Tom handed her the drink. She's already shown a lot of promise. Eleanor sipped her drink. It was so good. Or did she feel that way because Tom had made it? Some of her compositions are first-rate, as good as any student I've ever taught. Better, in fact. Oh, that's right. Trish said you used to be at Brandon Wythe. Eleanor nodded, hoping to discourage further questions. An excellent school, or at least that's what I hear. Why'd you leave? Mr. Bellamy, she couldn't call him Wynne, had asked her the same question. It was time to move on. Eleanor hoped her voice remained light and did not betray her. The song ended and Nat King Cole's Sentimental Reasons came on next. She jumped on the distraction, swaying her head and humming along to the music. Tom took another sip of his drink, set it down, and grinned at her. "Shall we dance?" he said. Clearly her ploy had worked. Pie forgotten, Eleanor set her own drink down and moved easily into his open arms. They danced without speaking for a few minutes, but the silence brimmed with sensation. Tom felt so different from Ira, tall, sinewy, with an expansive, easy way of moving. The song ended, and an announcer's unctuous voice came on, extolling the many considerable virtues of the latest model Chrysler. Tom let his arms remain around Eleanor, and she did not move away. So yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about from the last one, in that, or the opposite of the last one, because there was a little bit of exposition to explain Eleanor's feelings, but there was a lot of present action going on in this page. We had a lot of dialogue, people talking in real time, and then they were dancing in real time. So I feel like that's more compelling in terms of storytelling, although I do like me some exposition. And in this case, though, I'd quibble about it. There's not a lot of exposition, but I'd quibble about it because I think the author is bashing us over the head a little too much with Eleanor's concern over this question about her past work history. I mean, I think the author tells us way too many times so bluntly, she doesn't want to talk about this, she doesn't want to talk about this, and I'm like, why couldn't you just go with, like, Tom asks her about it, and then she immediately, as soon as she can, jumps onto the song to switch the topic. And if we just focused on that, or how quickly she jumped to the song, like, instead of answering, that would tell us with her actions that, she is worried about talking about this and doesn't want to talk about this, without the author telling us several times in a row, "Oh, I'm so nervous, I don't want to talk about this." So I'm feeling very writerly, I think, in this page 112 tag in terms of my, thoughts on these pages. But yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting. We obviously have a character with a hidden past, and she has this interest, it seems, in this other character, Tom. Since we're in the middle of the book, there's a lot we just don't understand. We're in the middle of a conversation. We're talking about this character, Margot, and we can tell from the dialogue that she's Eleanor's pupil, and that we don't know how Tom, I think, fits into that equation. But yeah, so, that part is, confusing because we don't have the context, but it seems like it has promise for interesting character relationships, but I do want to quibble about, I guess, that one thing. Kind of just feels a little too pedestrian. And finally, we have Closer to Fine by Jody S. Rosenfeld. She thinks she can change the way things have always been done to make those families happy. What about those of us who built this shul? Those of us who are there every Shabbat? What about making us happy? Her voice is getting louder, and I find myself slouching into the booth again. Lou, we're not going to be around much longer. The future of the synagogue doesn't depend on us. It depends on Rachel's generation. Shit, shit, shit. They both look at me. Okay, Miss Future Generation, says Zadie, as if suddenly noticing I am there. Do you agree with what your friend Miss Abraham had to say at the meeting last month? This is the first time he's asked me how I feel about the issue, and certainly the first time he's made reference to Liz's speech at the meeting. I think the rabbi is right, I say, as simply and honestly as I can. I don't think that making non-Jews more a part of our community dilutes it. I think it strengthens it. I pause, gauging my grandfather's face. I'm sorry, Zadie. We eat our pie in silence. And then there's a break. I pick Liz up at the airport on Monday morning. She's taken the day off work, and I decide to skip classes and spend it with her. It is a bright spring day, and we walk along the Charles as she tells me the story of her weekend. When we all got to the house Friday night, it was weird, stilted, like we were all being too careful. We ate a late dinner, and all I could notice the whole time was how tired and swollen my dad looked. He didn't say much, and when he did, it was kind of wheezy. Then, after dinner, Ilana and my dad went into the family room while Michael and I helped my mom clean up. Michael told my mom that he and I wanted to talk with my dad after shul the next morning. I am admittedly partial to this page 112 because I, started this video by saying, ooh, I picked out 3 Jewish books, and this is the one with obviously the most overt Jewish content. And it's interesting too, we have family drama, which again I do enjoy, and this divide between the old and the young. Zadie is a word for grandfather, and the way that their synagogue is being run, basically their community, where this Liz character has the power to make changes or to talk about changes, I guess, in a board meeting, and she is speaking out for interfaith families, basically, and making them feel a little more included. But that changes things the ways have always been done, and I mean, it doesn't get into specifics, I don't think. Well, I guess making non-Jews more a part of the community, I guess, it is vague, but by the way, I guess I'll show you, I do have a bookmark from the bookstore. I'll just put that in randomly. Again, we have some in-person stuff happening, some dialogue, which again starts in the middle because of, the context of being randomly on page 112. And we have Rachel and her grandparents sitting at a diner or eating somewhere. And again, they were talking, she was using exposition a little bit. One of them I liked a bit, like Rachel slouching in her chair. That really shows how uncomfortable she is without having to be overt. I don't know about the shit. I feel like, writers can be a little bit different about how they use internal thoughts that way. But, it works. I could quibble, I suppose, but it does sort of tell you she's uncomfortable without, telling you she's uncomfortable. It uses her internal dialogue to say it, so I like that. And I like how, eating their pie in silence at the end was their way of saying that they were at odds with each other. I really like that as well. But then in the next section, we get into some, I think, bad habits in that, the last paragraph is a paragraph of dialogue. And I don't think that's how people talk. It read like exposition, like explaining what was happening with Liz's dad, which is interesting enough to me. I love, family drama, and something's obviously off with him. But, that's not how people talk. There'd be, interruptions, and, people don't just give treatises like that. I feel like that's not the best writing. But I am admittedly intrigued, and I might be giving this one a little more of a pass for its problems than I'm giving the others, but I think this is the one I am going to add to this month's TBR, now that the light is slowly coming on to us. So that about covers it for me now. You can find the Goodreads links for all 3 of these books listed down below. I'm hoping at least that my overlay of text will look nice so that whatever weird shadows and light thing is going on here won't be too distracting. I guess we'll see when I get into post-production, because alas, all 3 of these books are new to page 112, which is fun, but it does mean extra work afterwards for me to do in editing. But again, it is exciting because they're all from last year, and I'm excited to get them into the game. And on that note, I tend to view my page 112 tag as a TBR game, and in fact I'll leave my playlist for my TBR game videos down below for this game and for the BookTube spin. So in that vein, I like to highlight another TBR game or readathon or something like that that another booktuber or booktubers are involved in, share the love a bit. And for this one, I think I'm going to go with a TBR game. I'm going to go with Disney Villainous, which is put on by Steph's Bookish World. I think it's pretty cool. It takes the Disney Villainous game, which is this sort of card pack game where you have little tiny boards with Disney villain characters, and there's different boards for the different characters, and I think there's expansion packs, and there's, I don't know exactly how you play it for real. I think it's a multiplayer game, but Steph plays it herself, and she moves her character around the board, and then she modifies the cards to be, reading prompts, and then when she gets a number of points, she'll move on to the next character, and I think, she has a following that they can choose the next villain that they want her to play. And I don't know, I just find it really fun. It's, a little bit different of a board game, and you get to see different characters and Disney stuff as you go along, and you know, she sometimes has to battle a hero. So, anyway, I will link down to Steph's playlist down below. And with that, I think I have chosen every book that I want to read in April, so that's exciting. And you should be seeing them as I go through my Friday Reads videos throughout the rest of the month. But before I get to Friday Reads, I'm going to fit in a quick little author's answer video, which actually I think is going to be more reading related than writing related for once. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.